All right, traders, George here, and let's take a look at some trade highlights from the past week, and I'll show you what I'm looking at for the week ahead. For starters, let's talk about a couple of the big stock and ETF trades. Let me get you over to Facebook. I talked about being long in the upper 62s and then an add-on in the upper 67s. It popped up 7% from there, not last week, but the reason I'm showing this to you is because what I mentioned was if this thing starts to break back below 77s, that would be a great sign to book open position profit. And really, it could have also been a short signal, but since we were long from there, that's not what we were thinking about. And then a little bit lower below that, it accelerated, and that's pretty much the end of it. It's down to 72s here, got even lower than that, but you can see that break below accelerated that move down. So poised to be there for the big pop, and then able to book some open position profit there and get all flat on Facebook. It's very similar to Schlumberger, except we weren't long on Schlumberger on the way up, but I showed you in the room how you could use the balance beam to drill down and find those key areas of interest where if price transitions through them, they set up a very good risk reward setup. We weren't long Schlumberger here, but I mentioned, when you see these big moves up, a lot of traders want to short them, and they just keep shorting them on the way up, and it's about emotion, and there's nothing really repeatable driving it. Well, here, when essentially getting back below 117 for Schlumberger, it set up this big fade. I was looking to retest where it had the big power candle pushing up for target 1, which is where we were on Friday. And then below that, we've got another $5 lower, and below that we're going to the 94s essentially. However, you'll notice I have a couple long listings here closing at 107.73s. This is something to watch this coming week, is if the bulls can get it over 109, you could see a $3 pop there, and over that another $3. So a lot of people wanted to get long here, a lot of people short covering, people that are sitting on gains here covering, people that wanted to be long here that didn't. Price is right back to where it was, and that's a classic recipe right there. So here's Twitter. I showed this to you in the live room, talked about being long at 38 here, and it popped up big time after hours, got up over 30% after hours, similar to Facebook and Schlumberger, with price breaking back down through a key area. In the live room we were at 47.48. I mentioned if we get below 47, pull the plug, and that's what happened there. We got down, we closed at 43.95, so giving up quite a bit of gain there. And you can see we're trading below and closing below this floor here, which opens up a possible move down to about 42.50. This would be one to watch at either about 41 or about 42.50 to see if some support comes in and this new bull impulse continues up. But this is really talking about pulling back some more, and similar to Facebook and Schlumberger pulling back, watch for this thing just to move up a little bit more to about 44.85. It will then be inside this recent commitment area here and likely have a trip up to 47s. Okay, that's Twitter. That was a great gainer there. It happened very quickly. And then two hedge trades that I showed you in the Validating a Market Top video. One was TZA, the leveraged ETF for small cap stocks, and the other was the TVIX, which is a 2 times leveraged ETF for the VIX. Let's check those out. All right, so in this particular grid here, don't take any mention of the short or long nomenclature here. This is just to highlight the targets. And really, the trade here for the TZA is to see price over the dominant spike here, the dominator here. Price clearing that by just a bit, 15.52s to be long. Looking to get up pretty high here just to get up to the next dominant spike. It came within about 15 cents or so of getting there, and moved over 10% in favor already and is sort of stalling out. So this is one to watch to see if it can get some support if it fades back a bit. One where you might want to push some stops up too with that much gain on the table. And then for a acceleration to the upside, which means the markets would be selling off here, round number 18, we see price start to get over that threshold, and we're likely going to see it could even be a little bit lower than 18, about 17.85s or so. Then there's a huge air pocket above, and we could see price spiking up quite a bit. So this is a good hedge for the market selling off, and it's already moved up over 10.5% since I showed it to you. The other one, TVIX, this was a really neat one to look at because it's a big mover. And here's this little unassuming setup here I showed you in the room. Basically, a very dominant spike here, and the upper twos, just a little bit of price proof to get it over the round number 3 here. This went up over 31% in favor in just a couple of days, okay? And it's not giving up too much at all, closing at 385s. This is one where if it takes out the high here at 395s, it's likely going to move up to 423 for the next target there. And if it starts to pull back, I would watch for the 340s to act as support. That's the main thing to watch there with TVIX. But you can see how quickly that thing popped in favor. Price finding some floor support here, trying to get over here. Then you've got this big move up here, pulls back to a higher low, and then starts to take over that balance beam yet again. And a real great trade there. That happened very quick, okay? Now, let's go back and let me show you what I covered in the last video. For the NASDAQ, we were at 39.25s. I needed to see 38.80 breach to get short and then looking for some downside. For the Dow, we were at 16.982s. We made it up a little bit higher from there, but really getting below 16 nines essentially would open up the door for further downside. And then for the S&P, we were at 1966s. We needed to move down about another 15, 16 points, and then we would look for some downside there. Well, it turns out that the S&P and the NASDAQ went up more, and that was one of the things that I mentioned was even though this was the sign that we would be moving up. If we get over 1979, we would be moving up. So with that in mind, it's great to talk about a market top, but validate the proof that that's occurring, right? That's what people haven't done, and people have been calling tops for months on end for 5 years. Why not just go if then around price? While price did make its way up higher, when all these levels were violated, price moved in favor very well. It turns out, see, the S&P got down almost to 1910 there. So that's a good 30 points from that 40 handle. With this spike here, just like some of these other setups in the stocks, if we see price over 23.50 as an entry point, this air pocket that helped pull price down, we could see price pop up a good 20 points there. So that's something I'm going to watch for strength out of the S&P. And if we stay below this 20 handle, 21.22s, this air pocket here is begging for price to move down. Look at how intense the dominator is here, and this is the top end at 1880 from the last video. This is an area we would expect support. So we've really got about another another 45 points lower that we could easily make just to pull down into this area here. But don't be surprised if the bulls come in and start to buy this thing up, get a little short covering, and the next thing you know, a 20-point rally, 25-point rally is easily in the cards. If that does happen, watch to see if this floor becomes resistance on the way up. If we break down more, watch for this area to become support. That's the S&P. So the NASDAQ drove up another 60 plus points from my last video. It set up a new bounce beam all the way up there at the top, and in turn breaking down below this point set up about a 30-point fade, and below that another 30 points, and then finally below the 38.80 handle set up a move in favor. So even not taking into account that it moved up higher and created these new levels after giving up all that, still breaking below that level, pretty profitable. But obviously if you're using the balance beams, you would have recognized this up here and been able to do something at the top, the new top. Now that price is below this 38.80 handle, there's a pretty good air pocket here, and this is probably the most important thing about the markets at large, is that the NASDAQ is really the king of the hill. It leads the big moves up or down, and if this thing stays below this area here, well, getting down to about 37.90 is definitely in the cards, and that would be a pretty big move down, another 80 points from where we closed. All right. However, just like these other sell-off scenarios, if the bulls can get this thing over the round number 3,900, we got to go up 31 points for that to happen. Then we could see another 30-point spike up to the ceiling of this commitment zone here. That's something to watch. Right now, this one is looking the weakest of the three of the three equity futures markets. Lastly, let's check out the Dow. So I mentioned 38.94 is a trigger to be short. When that price point was breached, we never made a higher high, and we drove down easily to hit this target here and through the air pocket to the next key target zone. I had 16.5s to 16.350s highlighted, and you can see we're right in the bread box there at 16.4s. We're a little bit below the heaviest commitment of this area here. This is one here where the bulls could start to get this thing into the body of this balance beam, and if they can get it over this ceiling here, about 16.501s, perfect, right? Then this air pocket works in their favor, and you can see a pretty good pop in the Dow. And in that scenario, you'd look for an early resistance point at about 16.650s or so. So we could have a 150 point pop easy if the bulls can get it over this floor here, and if they can't, looking to the left, there's not a lot of trading commitment below where we are now. The next key level below would be this level here. 16.184 is what I've got tagged there. So you can see a pretty good unwind if the bears step on the gas here, but they're really right on the heaviest commitment zone right now. And this is something, pre-market, Globex, Sunday going into Monday. Just watch this area here. Now, this could also set up across the board here with all the markets. It could set up some real good bounces in stocks and catch a lot of shorts with their pants down if they're not following rules, which 90+% of the traders out there aren't following rules. It's all about emotion, fear, and fundamentals. So if you're short, this would be a great area to look to defend. If you're looking for long resumptions in a lot of these powerful stocks, this is a great time to do it, to see some proof come into the futures markets and then correlate that to your stocks, and then watch all these moves up to see if they encounter resistance where they had prior support. Pretty much 101 there, especially easy to see if you're using the balance beam. We'll be on top of this in the live room, but there's a look at some great trades from last week and some big follow through in the futures on position trades there, and some good strategy price points for you for the coming week.